Right, so we're looking at a new frame today, which also came with this rather cool beer coolie, which says it all really, doesn't it? So yeah, cheers for that, Neil. Right, as you probably guessed, this is going to be a look at the Catalyst Machineworks Banggod frame, which, if you're familiar with Catalyst Machineworks, you'll know that they and pretty much every other successful frame manufacturer have had their frames cloned and sold on Banggod. And in this case, I say cloned in the loosest of sense, because if you've seen the Banggod version of the smooth operator, it's not even particularly similar. It's so awful, and I haven't got the Slam Nasty, so I can't comment on that one. But I don't know who buys these frames, but clearly people do. And my sort of take on, I review things for Banggod. I've used Banggod for donkeys. I quite like Banggod, but don't buy the cloned crap that Banggod sell. There are plenty of original cheap frames on Banggod that you don't have to go out and get, a clone of the Stingy frame or the Smooth Operator or any of those frames. Just buy the bloody original if you like it. So, Neill obviously got a bit sick of this and thought, well, if I can't stop them from cloning my frames, I'm going to clone them back. Hence, him ripping off Banggod's logo and dropping an O to make it the Banggod. So this is a 5 to 7 inch frame, which has been designed and based upon the Smooth Operator, which, if you've followed this channel for a bit, you'll know is a frame I very much liked. I had mine in the 5 and the 6 inch version. The 5 inch I gave away in my 2000 subs giveaway, and the 6 inch has been my companion for a long time and is in most of tree diving and more risky footage that I post. And the reason for that is, even though it's a big frame, it just feels really planted in the air and gives you the confidence to do those slightly risky manoeuvres. And my 6 inches lasted me really well. My 5 inch, I had a few issues with the carbon delaminating, but since I sealed the edges, I haven't had any issues whatsoever, and the whole frame, once it's together, feels really stiff. So this frame has been based upon the Smooth Operator, but has been designed to give you a lot more space, and in particular, if you want to run the DJI system, you have the space to do so. So as always, let's crack it open and see what we get. So we've got braces, and we've got a front and rear brace. Just, if you're looking at this frame, just check, 'cause I'm not sure if the 5 inch version comes with a brace, the rear brace is standard, or whether that's an extra. I can't remember off the top of my head. So we've got, obviously, these lot of carbon bits, and you can see it's very much akin to the Smooth Operator with this sort of cutout here and the way it flows around. So I'm going to put this together and then let's have a waffle and see what I think of it. Right, so there she is. I've put on the 3B2408 motors. It's got the Hero 7 action cam mount, somewhat, in my view, disgustingly in yellow, which kind of goes against my colour scheme unless you're Bardwell. But here it is, the Catalyst Machineworks 6 inch Banggod frame. So let's just talk through this guy and I'll let you know what the score is. So if we just start off with the Hero 7 mount first, and then I'll take that off and we'll look a little bit closer. If you're buying one of these frames, buy the action cam mounts. And I wouldn't generally say that, you know, I'm sure people will print their own, but the Catalyst Machineworks ones are absolutely fantastic quality. This is the one from my Smooth Operator, and as you can see, it's kind of reinforced with this sort of zigzag double effect, and they really are sturdy things. So if you're rocking a Hero 7 especially, which are really fragile, you definitely want to use one of those. They also do ND filter mounts, and these you can just slot in the TBS ND filters. And the good thing about these guys, rather than just the normal ones which you press on the front of the Hero 7, is they don't pop off every 2 minutes if you have a crash. So you basically just slide it across here and it keeps it nicely in place so you don't lose. A number of times I've lost the ND filter because you have a crash and it pops off, but with these guys you don't. So yeah, really good mounts from Catalyst, and they're well worth the money for this particular part. So if we just get this action cam mount out of the way, and we do that by essentially just removing this bolt here and again on the other side, but you'll see that this area here has a sliding mechanism, and the reason for that is with the actual frame itself you get two bars. You get this one which is 35 to 50 degree camera angle, and you get the one which is currently on which is 20 to 35 degrees, and this slot here just allows you to vary your camera angle on this particular one from 20 to 35, and it's got a little sort of pointed cutout area both on the TPU mount and the frame, which when it's at the very bottom is 20 degrees, when it's on the little spiky bit it's 30 degrees, and when it's at the very top it's 35 degrees, so it just makes it really nice and simple. So I'll just take this guy off. Right, and there you can see the standoff that the base of the Hero 7 mount goes onto, and you can see printed on this TPU piece is 20 to 35 degrees. So if we just set that aside for a second, just in case you're wondering, I was hoping that the Smooth Operator mount would fit on it, because I'd much prefer it in black, but they are, while they're the same mount, you can see that the Banggod frame has one connecting piece here, and the Smooth Operator has two, so they're not interchangeable. Right, so here's the frame, and the first impressions of it, it looks much better in the flesh than it did on the photos that Catalyst immediately released when this thing went public. And when Neill contacted me to ask if I wanted to review this, my immediate thing was to call it, instead of the Banggod, but to call it the Chubby Operator, because to me it just looked like a Smooth Operator that had put on a lot of weight and size. But when you actually see it in the flesh, it looks really compact and squat, and it really does sort of look like a handsome frame. So let's go through the basics. So we've got a 2mm top plate, we've got 2.5mm bottom plate, we've got 5mm arms, and again this is the 6-inch, and the frame comes with this front bumper which we're all familiar with, and this one has the rear bumper on it as well, or should I say rear crossbar on it as well. That doesn't come as standard with the 5 and 6-inch models. It just comes as standard on the 7-inch one, but my one came with this, and I'll be using it simple because if you're doing matty flips or anything like that and you're hitting the back end of the quad, the brace just helps stiffen it up. So first impressions are I really like it. Everything is cut really well, everything fitted together really well. There's no carbon lifting like there was on the Impulse Apex frame, and I didn't have to file out my motor holes, which I also had to do on the Impulse Apex frame. So first impressions quality wise are it's really good. The whole idea of this frame compared to the Smooth Operator is just really to make it, I suppose, more roomy for those people who want to run bigger batteries and go more sort of long range, or on its 5 and 6 inch versions, just to make your life a bit easier rather than having this immensely slammed stack, which made the Smooth Operator probably the most beautiful frame I've ever seen. But they haven't just raised the top plate up, stuck some standoffs on, and sort of taken the shortcut option. There's a lot of sort of things that have been designed specifically for this frame, which I really like. So first things first, the arms are exactly the same on this 6 inch as they were on the Smooth Operator. So as you can see, here's a spare Smooth Operator. It attaches by one bolt hole, and then you've got this little slot which another bolt goes through to allow you to quickly remove your arms. Because we're not using spacers to lift it up, obviously the height has been created by these standoffs, but you'll notice that they're sort of custom ones, and they're wider at the top and the bottom, just to take some of the strain and the pressure off a standoff, which is quite often a weak point on the frame. The frame itself comes with a lot of hardware, and the hardware comes in two different types. You get the normal stainless steel stuff, but if you notice on the stress points on the frame, so either arm mount here, and again on the bottom, and where the braces attach, you'll notice that we get this blue coloured hardware, or blue tinged hardware, and this is what catalysts call super screws. It's just basically a much higher quality screw. I think Neill said it was 170,000 psi, so it's much stronger than normal stainless steel screws or bolts, and they've basically been added to the stress areas on the frame, whereas the areas that we don't need super strong screws, we've just got normal stainless steel. The actual sort of design or the idea is very much similar to the Smooth Operator. So we've got this top plate, we've got this bottom plate, and we have this bulkhead which is made out of TPU, which sandwiches the two together. And the idea of this bulkhead has always been that because this section here is the bit that will tend to take the majority of the hits, the bulkhead will just allow the frame a little bit of flex, which will help spread and diffuse some of the force from a front end impact. Same with the brace. You can see that the nose just basically slides over it. That brace is basically just to stop your arms from snapping backwards and snapping off the relatively small mounting points here. And in practice on the Smooth Operator, it works really, really, really well. The weakest point of the Smooth Operator I always found was this point here. These guys can break relatively easily, but they're pretty cheap to replace, and it means that you're not having to buy, you know, a million different arms, etc. The whole hardware on this kit is much better than the original prototype Smooth Operators that I received, which originally had aluminium hardware and then changed to steel hardware. But even the steel hardware, in a bad crash, because the whole frame is so rigid, you would find sometimes that the steel hardware actually bent as well. And if you look at this particular bolt here, which is off the camera, you'll see that it's bent, and that's how stiff the frames actually are. They tend to sort of bend the screws before they actually break the frame. And as I said, the fact we've got these stronger ones here on all the stress points is a really good idea. Camera mounting wise, really sort of simple, clever nose. Obviously we've got these 3 slots, so you can move your camera backwards and forwards to your heart's content, and regardless of the size of your camera, it will fit in here, whether it's a full-size camera or, in my case, the DJI camera. And they also include these little spacers for the DJI camera. If you're using a micro camera, you'll need to use the sort of little extenders that some micro cameras come with, or you can buy for a couple of quid from Catalyst or whoever sells Runcam or Foxeer cameras. So whatever you're using, it's going to fit in here, and if you just look at it, you've got pretty much complete camera protection regardless of the size of your camera. Inside we've got tons of room for a double or probably even a triple stack. And you can see in my particular case the DJI Air unit fits nicely in the back. And the one thing I do like compared to a few other frames, apologies Neil, I scuffed your stand off when I was putting this together, is the actual MMCX connectors, which the DJI antennas connect to, are actually partially covered. The slot is partially covered by the rear standoff, which means that because we've got quite a bit of space forward and backwards, I can ram the actual antenna connectors up against these rear standoffs, which will stop them popping out. On top, we've got obviously a lot of battery space, far more than we had in the original smooth operators. If I just find a battery, you can see that we've got acres of space, even with the action camera on it. So, you know, you're not going to have any problems running bigger batteries. This is the massive, what is it, 2200 6S cell, which I found 3 weeks later after I crashed my 8-inch and lost it. So this is the biggest battery I would ever come close to, and as you can see, it still fits on relatively easily. So we're not going to have any issues with batteries. So everything is just a little bit more spaced out and I suppose leisurely than it was on the smooth operator, which was really sort of tight and made to measure in many ways. So everything looks like it's been put together really, really well. The only thing I would mention, and Neil, if you're watching, is the rear bracer itself, which is the option, comes with its own hardware, but mine didn't come with longer bolts to attach the rear brace to this standoff here, so I just had to use some of my own. You get tons of spare bolts, but not the size that I actually needed. They weren't long enough. You'll also notice on the top plate you've got these slots here, and that's if you want to run your battery toilet tank style, because I'm not so sure it's really that big of a deal for people who are freestyling. So that's kind of it really. I'm going to build mine out with the DJI system, which is you know, it's pretty much made for. In terms of mounting, you can see we've got 30.5 standard mounting at the front and 20 by 20, and we've got the same at the rear as well, like the smooth operator. So you can essentially run pretty much anything you want here. 2 double stacks at the back, 2 double stacks in the middle. You should have plenty of space. With the DJI units, because we've got this little bit of extra space on the top, we can probably get a receiver up here. There's not a huge amount else we want to put in, and we've got enough space up front, in fact acres of space here, that I can put a buzzer and just glue it in there, which is what I tended to do with the smooth operators. And just for side-by-side comparison, and if you're thinking with UAV futures over here, here's my battered 6-inch smooth operator, which has been through the wars. So in terms of downsides, there's a couple of things that I wish Catalyst would do. The first is this frame has obviously come out and been released very, very early, and I wish they would wait until they'd got all the bits and bobs 3D print wise together before it went on sale, because I've got no battery pad, which is annoying when you've got obviously fairly hefty M2.5 bolts, so I'm going to have to do something there. There's no rear mount for an antenna, and while they're, you know, a couple of quid or you can easily print one off, it'd be nice, you know, if there was an option just to get them straight away when the frame was released. The only thing that I would say is Catalysts obviously sell all their 3D prints, which is absolutely fine. Everybody's got to make a living. I wish little parts like this
were available to print separately. Because for somebody like myself who's not in America, who has to pay a lot in shipping to get it delivered to the UK, albeit this was sent for free, when I want to get bits and bobs, if I need a new TPU piece here, I don't really want to be paying shipping costs and all the rest of it just to get that little piece. I'm more than happy to pay the $20 or whatever these cost, because it's a great bit of great bit of 3D print work. But little bits like this, just release the file for this and make people's lives a bit easier. And it's not to do you out of money or anything like that. It's just that we won't be able to get spares like that in Europe or in the UK, and they're the bits that you always end up needing. You know, if I break an arm or a couple of arms or this guy, more than happy to pay the shipping, but for little bits like that, not so much. So that's it from me. Great frame, really like it. Thanks as always to Neill at Catalyst Machineworks for sending it. I've just noticed that my son has left a Father Christmas that he's just been given. So we'll add that to the frame. As you can see, it also perfectly fits Father Christmas if you want to use it as a sledge or a sleigh. So that's it from me. Yeah, looking forward to getting this guy put together. It's nice and roomy, and I'm guessing we'll have a lot of fun with it. Cheers, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.